Do you ever feel alone in your class? Do you ever wonder if anyone is out there, if learning is actually happening? Would you like to activate your students' learning? This video will show you how you can do just that by using active learning techniques. So, what is active learning? Let's start with what it's not. Active learning is not a learning approach where the student is a passive receiver of information, sitting idly as information is presented to them, with no expectation of engagement or response on their part. No, the active learning approach engages a student with people and content. The student interacts with peers and instructors and receives and processes information through a range of channels and behaviors by thinking about ideas and doing things. Active learning engages the student and encourages performance. If we look at learning activities as a continuum, in a normal class, students might listen to a lecture, read a textbook individually, or view a video. But they can also be asked to think about the content. What do I know? What do I not know? How can I use this? They can be asked to do something, solve a problem, create something new. And they can be given the opportunity to reflect on what they've learned. What went well? What went wrong? How can it be better? While all of these activities require students to interact with information, the first three lead them to absorb information, as though they were empty containers needing to be filled. The second three, however, require them to process information, to analyze, to create, and to reflect. These types of activities have been shown to result in deeper, more meaningful learning. Active learning engages the students with the content. It encourages them to perform, that is, to think and do. And finally, active learning is inclusive. It connects the student with his or her instructor and peers. Together they communicate, collaborate, and create in relation to one another. Let's look at some examples of active learning techniques. Do you need a quick check of whether students are understanding a concept in the middle of a lesson? Why not use one of many student response systems? Ask a question and have them answer with a quick show of hands or thumbs up, thumbs down. Or have them raise different colored cue cards, green for yes and red for no. Clickers, in-meeting polls, and discussion boards in your learning management system all give the students the opportunity to make their knowledge and their ideas heard. So break up a lecture explanation with a brief question or comprehension check and have students communicate their understanding or lack of it non-verbally. Do you need to get students to think deeply about a topic? Maybe come up with some solutions to a problem? How about a think, pair, share? First, have each student think and respond individually to engage actively with their own understanding. Then have them work with a partner. Paired discussion allows every student to share their response in a non-threatening environment with only one person, encouraging discussion and peer teaching. And finally, these refined answers and solutions can be shared with the rest of the class. Would you like to check what your students understood from today's lesson? Try a 1-minute paper. At the end of a lesson or topic, have students take 1 minute and write down what they now know about the topic. It's a good idea for this one to actually use a timer so they get a full minute and you won't get distracted by questions and go over time. A review of your students' responses to this activity will give you a good idea of whether or not they grasp the key points, as well as if they've misunderstood anything. So if the 1-minute paper shows you what your students know, the muddiest point encourages them to reflect on what they don't know. It allows them to identify the gaps in their learning. Is your class learning about a complex issue? Do you need to know what students understand about the interrelationship between concepts? You could have them write out lengthy paragraphs, or you could try a collaborative mind map. Mind maps are a great way for students to show their understanding of relationship and structure. To do this as a collaborative activity, first have students individually write a few concept-related terms on sticky notes. Secondly, separate the students into groups and have each group arrange all of their sticky notes into a logical layout on a whiteboard or flip chart. Once this is done, have them use a marker to draw the interrelationships between all the terms. Now, we as humans are very adept at remembering stories, and the use of narrative is a great way to get students to remember key concepts. Storyboarding encourages students to take a lot of information and to simplify it into its key components. Once they've created their storyboard, they can then work collaboratively to turn their narrative into a video or commercial. Is your topic very content heavy? Do you have large sections of reading or information gathering? A jigsaw can reduce the cognitive load because each student focuses on only a part of the whole. Divide the content into parts, with one group of students responsible for each part. These students become the experts on this section of content. Once all the groups fully understand their own parts, redistribute the groups so that each new group has an expert from each content area and can share their knowledge in the new group. Whichever activity you choose, the most effective act of learning combines individual responsibility with a safe environment of collaboration and sharing. There are dozens of very simple and creative ideas available online. Just do a search for active learning techniques. Most of these activities take very little planning or preparation and even less class time, but the returns in terms of feedback, comprehension, engagement are great. Does this mean you'll never lecture again? Absolutely not. The key is to provide ways for students to think about, to use, and communicate the information they acquire in a safe, collaborative, and supportive environment. So now it's your turn. How will you activate your students' learning?